and invite our next speaker all the way from the land of the rising sun, Mr. Joe Nagasaka-san, to please come on to the stage to present. Of course, a little bit of information. Of course, is a bit of an obligation before he begins formally. Joe Nagasaka established Shikimata Architects right after graduating from Tokyo University of the Arts in 1998 and now has his design office in Kitasando, Tokyo. The scale of his work ranges widely from furniture to architecture to the urban landscape, and the type of work is also extensive, including cafes, shops, hotels, and public baths. In any size of his architecture, he is always conscious about the 1:1 scale, exploring materials and design, expanding his works in both domestically and globally. He's been discovering new perspectives and values from everyday things and existing environments, while presenting unique ideas such as subtraction, misuse, update of knowledge, invisible development, and semi-architecture, and has established an original architectural image. So without further ado, Mr. Joe Nagasaka-san.
Thank you for introducing me. I'm from Tokyo. Thank you for coming. Today, I want to talk about the texture of the city. Sosuke Fujimoto once said to me, "My architecture is interested in that the body and the city are connected without skipping architecture." When I heard this, I thought, surely it is. But at the same time, I thought that I was But at that same time, I thought that I was not designing erase architecture. I think of the city, nature, furniture, and the people as equivalent. As a result, architecture disappears. Ikko Yokoyama, the curator of M+, and the person who first introduced me in Milan, says, "Artists often use the white space of the white cube as a starting point, so that the viewer sees it as a work of art. And architects often paint their building completely white to make an artist's gesture." Nagasaka dared to reveal the elements that make up the space, renewal knowledge in everyday life. Yes, that's right. I am always conscious of distance to everyday life in my project. If it's not new, it's not architecture. If you don't paint it white, it's not architecture. If you think in such a self-centered way, the city will fall apart. I started thinking self-driving architecture when I was working on Sayama Flat in 2008. I saw before my eyes how Japanese Western interior, which I had previously thought uncool, became cool as it was being demolished. And also, I had never been interested in building and townscape without design element. Through this experience, I began to see the potential in such buildings and townscapes. Through this experience, I began to think about self-driving architecture. It was a very low-budget project and only 1/10 of the normal budget, So without desktop planning or presentation to client, we built 4 rooms first as a trial. And after seeing the result and getting approval, we thought about and built the rest of the room on site in the same way. The picture on the right shows the scene at the time of demolition when we were thinking about the project. This is a concept drawing which shows that it can be reconstructed simply by only subtraction. This is how the green wall is broken. Green wall. This is how the green wall is broken. This is how the green wall is broken. This is how the green wall broken. This is how the green wall is broken. Besides, the tenants were able to carry out minor interior work. As a result, the apartments were very popular and the tenants were quickly found. This is because it is cheap and offers a high degree of freedom. Moreover, despite being rental flats, the tenants can change and develop the buildings themselves without architect, which is called self-driving architecture. The other day, about 16 years later, some people still live there, and we visit one of their rooms to take photos. It's cool. The search for the self-driving architecture continued. One turning point in the process was the Kyoto University of Arts proposal. Unfortunately, it was not realized. The changing element of the Parisian cityscape, the marché and parks were a source of inspiration. This is marché. There is a hole under the marché. The pole can stick to there. And this furniture can move with lifter. Hand-lifted furniture and microstructure system were prepared for the architecture in advance. The idea was used in 4 multi-purpose spaces that were planned for all parts of the school. It actually changed like this. This system actually made possible Hei's first large store in Japan. The project was designed and constructed in just 3 months. Hand-lifted and pole system were used there. Rooms are created by sticking poles through holes drilled at 1 meter pitch and attaching panels. This system of self-made interior construction gradually made the shop look more and more like a shop afterwards. It was then realized in one of the buildings within the Musashino Art University campus. Here, a smart system was used, linked to the pole system, so that power and lighting can also be changed. This allows the partition to be created freely and continue to change on a daily basis. There are a lot of things happening like this. I was working with my own hands and making furniture at the same time as Sayama Flat. Anyway, I really had a lot of time compared to now. I am glad that I was able to think with my hands at the time and learn how to create something original, especially at this time, I was making things in search of new texture. In the beginning, I was addicted to new plywood and dry materials such as paper tubes, MDF, LSL, and OSB. Now everyone uses them for finish as a matter of finishing, as a matter of course, but back then they weren't used at all. And we were always in trouble with carpenters and customers to use it. So we invented a table made of epoxy resin called a flat table, which changes color shade depending on depth of the bumps. And we found various bumps and made several flat tables. Among them, a table called uzukuri, which uses traditional Japanese technique called uzukuri, was presented at Established & Sons from London. This coloring are inspired by traditional Japanese craft of tsuganuri. Artec uses this technique for one of the products there. Racing series with circular saw. We invented a lot of how to make how to use circular saws like this. On the other hand, there is also something like a texture of the land in that particular place. Of course, there is a surface texture of the material, but it is also smell, the light, the colors, buzz of the people, the noise of the town, the plants, and the other elements. That makes you feel, I'm here. This is very important, but recently, no matter which country you go to, all the new building looks the same. And the individuality of the place is lost. This is particularly noticeable in Asia. Can't we value to the texture of each individual site more? We would like to introduce a few projects that are being planned with this in mind. This is a Blue Bottle Coffee Kyoto. Here the project is about bringing Western culture, coffee, into the Japanese world. The floor was actually lowered to allow seamless access to the outside, so the entire floor was broken and concreted over, and the house was built as if it were on the top of the floor. The inside was also planned to retain, as much as possible, the parts of the building that were visible during construction. This is the Lulabo, recently opened the flagship store in Kyoto. Transformation of Western texture into Japanese texture. Lulabo's brand color, black, was reproduced using Japanese dyes. And here the space was created using texture from Onomichi in Hiroshima, without using our design language as much as possible. We didn't want to create any boundaries between the old and new. Because we wanted to connect the place to this unchangeable landscape. To achieve this, we are raising money through crowdfunding, bringing together people from various regions to create the project together. Having a couple of former staff members moved next door to run it, and collecting content from all over the world with the help of Suzanne Oxenal in the Netherlands. This is a complex building in Aizu, a historical area in the north of Japan, which was renovated from the factory. We planned it so as not to change the original appearance or texture as much as possible. The workshops, the interior was also planned in such a way as to give the beautiful existing structure a sense of charm. The workshop space here is designed to keep the traditional craft of Aizu lacquer alive in the modern age, and the items made there are sold on the spot. This is a public bus. Public bus in an age when every house has a bus, public bus houses became useless and went into decline. However, by adding sauna and bar and adapting to the lifestyle of today's young people, public buses are once again acting as local communication spots. Local communication spots are important texture of the area. This is bus. Sauna and cold water bath. This is bus. 3 functions are included in limited space. This is Okomeya, a former greengrocer shop in a traditional shopping street that has been converted into the onigiri shop, which retaining its texture. The corner shop was created when the corner shop was created when the warehouse was spontaneously selling alcohol. In order to make it a place where family living above could work in a healthy way, we took over the casualness of the corner shop, but created a wider, more open atmosphere. This created a place that could be enjoyed by a slightly wider customer base. This is a Blue Bottle Coffee Sangenja store. The attractive texture of the concrete, typical old building, was retaining, while constructing it with new element. All the huge development around the world are similar. They all wipe out the memory of the land, and the buildings are filled with similar shops. In contrast, we call the developments that gradually change while retaining the original town texture of the land, individual developments. It is precisely because we cannot see the whole picture that we have high expectations for the future and its neighborhoods. That is the kind of city we want. The term invisible development was invented when we were planning the DATUM project on Korea Island of Jeju. Originally, we were planning to use two buildings to create a complex that would include a Japanese brand DATUM department. There are a restaurant, a store, and a hotel there. Then, in addition, our client asked to renovate the surrounding building there. So we had to plan several of these buildings at the same time. At that time, we did not force the design code to integrate each building because we thought that it would be more enjoyable to plan each building separately instead of trying to force them to have the same design. That's how this town was created, and I'm going to introduce you to 8 shops in there. The first photo on the left shows gardening. This is the restaurant and the store. This is the hotel, the room, and the reception, and the common space. This is a fry tag store, next building. Downstairs is a cycle shop. This is a cafe, next building, in the next building. And some walk, then you reach this building. This is a fashion store. We use waste material from the ocean. This is a project in Kurashiki, in Japan, the beautiful historical area centered on the Ohara Museum of Art. is gradually aging, and the young people of the area are no longer staying close to it, making it difficult for the area to survive as a living town. So we are thinking of creating some small shops in the area, and first of all, creating a place for young people together in the area. As a first step, a standing pub was created on the corner in front of the station. The building was originally built after the World War II, leaning against the building next door. The idea was created the building that would give people sense of the building as it was. So the entire internal wall on the boundary with the next building was demolished to expose the next building's external wall, which was then lit up. The wall was made visible from the station through a large opening in the front. It has become a place where young people are attracted by it. We are also planning to build 2 or 3 more in the town, which we hope will bring local young people closer to the beautiful historical area. And many foreigners are coming to Japan now, where such a texture of the land remains. At the same time, the export of those Japanese land textures has recently started, due to the need for foreigners who like them and want the same one back home. We called it dekasegi. We take Japanese material and craftsmen and transplant Japanese texture abroad. This is former factory in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Waste wood, which in Kyoto would be rubbish, was processed and used to make furniture and crates. On site, FRP was used to make a large face plate. Sign was also made by sandblasting the existing wall. This has created a space with both Kyoto and Brooklyn texture. Terimakashi.
Thank you as well. I guess we should say arigato as well to Mr. Joe Nagasaka-san. Thank you for your presentation. No restriction on clapping, ladies and gentlemen. So, of course, I finished a little bit earlier than expected, so I suppose we can go on to the next speaker. At this stage, at 3 o'clock precisely, I'd like to call upon Mr. Jim Caumeron. But before I do, I would like to before I invite our final speaker, I'd like to give you a little bit of a background information before he comes on stage. Mr. Jim Caumeron is one of the emerging new generation of architects in the Philippines, known for his idea-based design that he applies in his projects. Each of this work have strong, unique ideas explored with connection and site context, user culture, and climatic conditions. He attempts to introduce an architecture with geometries that are uncommon, but performative and purposeful. He established Jim Caumeron Design along his academic work and artistic pursuits as he dabbles into installation, sculptural art, commissioned by local galleries in Manila. Today, he spearheads the creative design track of the architecture school, sets the direction of the studio work of the design classes, and some of his recent works received an award and were published and exhibited internationally. Please welcome our final guest for the day, for the conference, Mr. Jim Caumeron. Mr. Caumeron? I'm not sure whether he's gone invisible here. Mr. Jim Caumeron, calling for Mr. Jim Caumeron. This is a little bit of suspense we like to give to the audience members before we give you the final speaker. Will he, won't he, that kind of thing. I don't know, maybe if you give another round of applause, he'll magically appear. Right? Oh, it worked. Thank you. Mr. Jim, please take your time. There's no rush.
All right.
Okay.
I am so sorry. Apa kabar semua? Okay. I'm nervous. Okay. I think I was. Victor, I'm here already. Okay.
No, I'm going to be honest. Our
Okay.
previous guest ended a little bit earlier than expected, so
All right.
you have an extra time. We would like
Okay.
you to take as long as you need.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you for that.
Sure.
So I gather that I might have been introduced already. So I'm actually humbled and in disbelief that I'm standing on stage because I just read my co-speakers in magazines and I'm a big fan of many of them. And when Pam invited me to come here to speak, I was prepared to say no because this is such a big audience. It's my first time to speak in an international audience. But local designers and local architects, my colleagues encouraged me to do so. So I take this as an opportunity to assess and review what I've done in the little practice that I have in Manila. And I know that many of you in the audience are aspiring practitioners, just like me. And when we design something, we have a design intuition that we somehow probably don't know of, but we know it is there. So this preparation process for this talk, I took it as an opportunity to find the meaning in what I do as a designer. And I'm taking you in this journey. So I think in developing our design intuition, it's very important that we know our background and where we came from. And in my case, I grew up in how do you? Okay. Sorry. Okay, I grew up in Makati. It's one of the oldest CBDs in the Philippines. And it's a very comfortable life, but when you get down off the building, it's still a chaotic city. What's ironic about Makati City, whilst it's like KLCC, a majority of the population in the city doesn't live in the city because they cannot afford it. You see that pink line beside it, that is the main thoroughfare that we have. Yes, we have inner roads inside, but the main thoroughfares are just limited, and you are relegated to this kind of situation during rush hour. So it's very common for people who work in Makati to have this kind of condition. And ironically, when we have another city called BGC, or Bonifacio Global City, and it shares the same problem as Makati City. And whilst it provides us a good picture of what developed Philippines can be, it's still problematic in terms of logistical efficiency because it only has one main thoroughfare. And what's causing this is that green part that you are seeing over here. These are gated walled communities of exclusive villages that is probably common to many developing countries. It's probably composed of 5 to 6 villages, but our politicians, our ambassadors, including celebrities, and probably our business tycoons live in these gated communities. In short, our decision makers live in these gated communities. Therefore, even if planners suggest that we free up these spaces to make the city more porous, it's nearly impossible. It's almost the same as our history. The influential Spanish, the influential Filipinos, and rich Filipinos lived within the gated wall of Intramuros. It's a Spanish bastion. Being defensive, it's our sense of security. So it's so sad that we still have this culture nowadays. So when you go inside this walled city, you see you see houses that is walled up, that is also gated. The walking experience is a bit dismal, and you don't see the architecture behind it. You don't see the talent of local architects because it's covered by walls. And you can see that the convenience is within proximity with the buildings in the background because it's a privilege to live within these gated communities. It's a far cry from how we used to live. I think this is common in Southeast Asia. The nipa hut or the bahay kubo is like a typology that is very environmentally sustainable because it is lifted from the ground, and then you have natural breeze passing through underneath. You can raise livestock and chickens underneath. And what's important is that the moment you open your windows, you can gossip with your neighbors. You can say hi to your neighbors. It's more socially connected. And more importantly, you are connected to nature. And it's the same values that we learned from the planners, that from the old cities of before, wherein people are more socially connected with their environment and socially as well. This is a study of one of my students, wherein he tries to compare the building footprints of informal settlements or of marginalized communities in Manila in comparison with the layout of a medieval city, that is almost similar. So my office philosophy is always dealing with the ideas between introversion and extroversion. I am an introvert myself. If you notice, it took some time before I got here. So, we recognize the need for privacy, and we also advocate for the need for connection to the outside and to socially. And ironically, just right outside these walled communities or walled villages are the marginalized communities. And mind you, the people here know each other. The basketball court is like their public piazza. Compared to the gated communities wherein you know your neighbors when you are a member of a village association. So this is the chaos that we are trying to work with. And that's why many of my clients want to escape this noise, want to escape this chaos. That's why my office explores in the idea of nothingness and openness, because it provides them a venue for respite, quiet, and silence, and at the same time a place so that they can customize and architecture becoming a backdrop of their lifestyle. So if we are going to build, we thought that maybe we can build with the purest of objects in mind. The purest of objects can be a part of the landscape, much like this dwelling in Cappadocia, or an object that stands out in the landscape, because we just want to provide the essentials to our clients so that they can live around that space. I have a friend who had a talk with the United Architects of the Philippines Singapore chapter, and this was his quote, has something to do with the purest of ideas. He likes making models that gets exhibited publicly in the Philippines. He has beautiful ideas of architecture, much like the painting of Zaha did when she was still painting. And for him, the moment it gets built, the architecture becomes impure. And I operate in the same mindset, and it resonates with me. That is why the paintings of Ozenfant, when he diminishes and reduces the details so that it will have the basic of ideas, so that the purest of ideas is expressed in the work. I'm going to show you later one of my projects, and this is one good example of it, wherein we want to express the slice in itself in a normal construction manner. You are going to hide, you're going to expose the structural member, and then you are going to probably express the window frames, but in this case, we want to express the idea of the slice. That's why we want to hide it as much as possible, so that at certain times of the day, you won't even see the column behind it. one of our philosophy is to blur the architecture systems, because we want to make the architecture to be more readable, more tangible, and more relatable to ordinary people. Why is that? Because we want to create a unique experience for them, much like this old project wherein it earned a moniker of barcode house, but which is not, because it's supposed to be a divider between the stairs and the hallway that becomes a ceiling, and it engulfs the space of the entrance hallway, etc. With this, we want to say that we want to have purposeful experience of our ideas. So the theme for this year is space-time meaning. So I posited a question to myself: is concept really important in making our designs or space more appreciated? I also teach in the academe. Most of my life is in the academe. Normally, when you are in the university, the setup is always problem-based scenario, wherein the design solution is the idea. In our case, we want to experiment on idea generation, wherein the idea becomes the generator of architecture. And in this case, one of my students created an architecture based on the idea of natural sounds. I'm not going to discuss it because this is not my project, but I just want to provide you an idea of my premise as a practitioner, because I understand that our practice is always about problem solving, but I want to highlight the power of ideas. This is a quick project with an IT guy whose family purchased a cookie cutter house 2 hours away from Manila. They were not happy with the house. You can see how small it is. The first picture on the right, this is the extent of the wall already. You can see how small it is. That's the living room, that's the dining room, and that's the kitchen in one space. So of course, the first order of business is to make the space bigger. So we want to apply openness in it. So this is the existing plan. You can see how much space was occupied by the staircase. And our proposal is to open it up so that they can host many activities in it in the limited space that they have, including in the second floor. So we are utilizing the stairway to become, to host an architectural element we call treehouse. So idea is a treehouse. The treehouse can host many different activities, mini activities such as eating, dining, studying, playing, etc. Since it's also made permeable so that they can see each other's visual connection, and somehow it makes the interior spaces breathe. This is how it looks like at the ground level. So we open it up, it's a much better space, and it is how it looks like at the second level. And then to make it more comfortable, we introduce cushions, and this is how it's being used by the users. Okay. Is this Joe Nagasaka? No. So again, I understand in practice it's always about problem solving, and but in this case, I want to make the client problems, client requirements, site conditions, etc., as the source of the ideas. So for the first idea, it's all about wrapping views. This was done for a high school classmate who again live in Manila, whose space is very limited because of our densely populated urban context, and that's why their views are also limited. His requirement is to make very simple requirements since he's a high school classmate. So he just wants to make the house to be very different from what they have. And you can see that the window is very dark because it's just facing a fence. So the next house that they will build is a getaway house 2 hours away from Manila. It's called Tagaytay. Tagaytay is on a higher elevation, providing cool breeze, and you have a view of one of the smallest volcanoes in the world called Taal. And unfortunately, because of its proximity to the city, to the capital, it can be really crowded. And then this road, don't be deceived, because whilst you have a really good greenery on the ridge, it can be jam-packed during weekends because of traffic. So this is the site that we have, and we have we are very fortunate to have a park across our property. And most of the houses in the context are Mediterranean houses. That's why one of his requirements is he doesn't want a Mediterranean house. So the profile of the sidewalk is sloping downwards slightly. And then the moment you get to the edge, it's actually sloping 1.5 meter drop. So my initial proposal, of course, was something very programmatic, but it got shelved because the budget, I blew up the budget. So the next course of action was to make the building footprint a bit smaller so that we can minimize the cost implication. So I was worried that the design will be similar to their old house, which is just about 150 square meters. So I thought of still opening the views outside, and I understand that this is not located near the ridge to have a view of the volcano. The best that we can do is to open up the house on all of its sides, just to have an idea of openness and expanse. So recognizing the climatic conditions and the exposure to sun, one side will be smaller, the opening will be smaller, and the other side will be bigger because they demand a sunrise exposure. So we created that interesting slanting profile at the facade. And then at the same time, the bigger facade will have operable windows to welcome natural air. And then the ceiling drop provided us the terrain drop provided us space for the ceiling. And when you lift up the bigger volume, this is what you have. In Filipino culture, we'd like to perform on Christmas. I don't know if it's the same with you guys, but on Christmas, I remember when I was a kid, I was part of the Backstreet Boys and sometimes Spice Girls. And we were asked to perform in front of our families. In general, kids are forced to perform. So this will act like a stage for their family gatherings. So when you are standing at the entrance foyer, it's actually framing the tree across where this picture is taken from. So this is what you see looking at the tree. And then as you go to the living areas, which is a 1.5 meter drop, there is a transition step. And again, this is referencing our Filipino culture of a siesta. When we were growing up, we were forced to sleep in the afternoon so that we can grow taller. I think it's effective with me. So it's still a condition that is happening in the provinces. These are the normal papag, we call it papag, made of bamboo, etc. And what we did is a modern version as a transition step for that. And it's a very effective space because my client told me that this is where they sleep, especially when they have an overcrowded guest. So this is the view of the entire space, expressing the horizontality of the wrapping idea, and it also dictated the fixed elements such as the dining room. And when you get to the kitchen, it also have a horizontal view, seeing the activities outside with the kids playing and the dad playing, building Legos because he's a Lego enthusiast. And we have a barbecue area, and again, that fixed element extends outside. Natural area is activated, and it's aided by the slanting of the ceiling from east to west. And my client said he likes hanging out in the stairwell because it's a sealed space, and yet it invites the natural air to penetrate. And then this is how it looks like. And then you can see the clerestory windows on the west side of the building. And we wanted our interior walls to be not touching the upper volume because we want the volume to appear as if it is floating. So we introduced glass clerestory windows that are fixed, and some of them are operable to allow the natural air to pass through and also to echo the ventanilla of our old Spanish houses. So this is the view of the master's bedroom, and you notice how small it is, but this is the view of the sunrise. And since we don't have a hierarchy of a master's bedroom should be being the bigger space, we utilize the above space of the stairs, that it becomes a play space for their kid. And I thought that the wrapping void helps in the expansion. That the impression of the expansion. And you see the second layer of the window, allowing that cross ventilation and still preserving the profile of the building. And the moment you bring back the volume on top of it, you have a view, you have a window underneath. And since if you are in the living area, you are provided with an eye-level view of the outside. Therefore, you're able to say hi to your neighbors. So that again is exploring the idea of being an extroverted house. And then it also informed the height of our fence walls, the traps the traps around the property that provides the privacy for the house. So in terms of meaning, it's only meaningful for us when the users are making memories with the space. And mind you, my client is not the eldest of their clan, and yet it became an inviting space for them. So they like hosting family gatherings there and create memories because of the space, because of the experience that they have. So the second idea is focal point. This project is for Viewpoint House. Again, we were lucky to have been given property across a park. Unfortunately, our property is an L-shaped lot wherein the perimeter, the most of the perimeter is actually just neighboring walls. But the view that you have is the park across with a big tree across. So definitely any architect would actually recognize that this is the highlight that you need to celebrate. So as much as possible, we want to introduce many programs that face this view and utilize this view. And this also inform the form language of our window, because we had to create a mother window. And definitely this mother window will be beneficial for the living room. And the mother window could have been a typical rectangular window, but since we want to suggest and highlight the views, we used diagonal protrusions, and that informed, we had an elevation, like a study of elevation, wherein it appeared too heavy, and the diagonal protrusions help in the impression of the building to become lighter and more pleasing to the eye. So this is how it is from this elevation. And again, we want to make the views shareable from the living room. And I told you about introversion, extroversion. My client here is a very private person. He's a doctor by profession, and he's not really into design. So he doesn't want to be exposed to the public. That's why we raise the big window so that they are not seen in the living room. But this view is shared by the family room at the second floor and by the master's bedroom. This is the view from the ground floor, from the family room, and this is the view from the master's bedroom. And this is how you see the house from the park across. And again, there's some compromise about introversion, extroversion. So my client agreed, and somewhat we were able to convince him to somehow open up the walkway from the entrance. Anyway, it's not something that it's not an activity that needs privacy, and I will explain later why the second level is a bit covered up. It's because it's exposed to the harsh heat of the sun. That's why we had to minimize the openings here. But we still want the building to breathe. That's why we created minimal fenestrations. But these fenestrations, this is the prototype made by my contractor, and the profile is a slanting profile so that it can repel rainwater. And but it's not fixed. It has a fixed glass, but it has an opening to allow the air to penetrate the space. So this is how it looks like. It creates an interesting pattern of light, and it informs the detail of the ceiling as if there are openings by the ceiling. The two windows on both ends allow cross ventilation, and these are the programs. You have the library, and then this is how the family room communicates as well with the master's bedroom. And you may ask, what happens to the other bedrooms? The best that we can do is to utilize the form language of the diagonal protrusions and use it as an offset, so that when you are in the bedroom, if you can see the white part on the right diagram or plan, we offset the space so that the master's bedroom will have an impression of a bigger offset from the perimeter fence of their neighbors. We made the other windows more operable, just like this one. And these are the other spaces, and this generated the floor plan for that idea. You can see the master's bedroom with the family room sharing the same view. The next idea is trueness. Again, my client doesn't want to be exposed. It was a non-negotiable item. So the best that we can do is that the moment you get inside the fence wall, we can open it up so that it will feel as if it's wall-less. So try to imagine an enclosure, a 4-walled enclosure. Take out the 2 walls, the opposite 2 walls, and then you have parallel planes. And that parallel planes will give you an expanse of space. So you have the roof plane, you have the wall planes on the second and the first floor, and then the fence wall. So even in floor plans, that trueness is also expressed. The moment you enter in the living room and the dining room, and the private bathrooms have their own private views. The second floor is the same. The client here is a doctor who loves billiards. So we have a billiards hall at the second floor that has the same trueness. So this is how you view the outside space. Of course, it's the fence wall, and this is the opposite side of it with the open lawn. And then you have this is the living room with an element that is protruding that intersects the living room and the dad's room. It's actually an interactive object that you can sit on, but it is actually a swimming pool that provides depth to the swimming pool. And you can see the plane resting on the the fence wall. And then this is the swimming pool that intersects the 2 rooms. And at the second floor, for privacy, we had to enclose 2 planes. But it provided us an opportunity to provide an accent plant for the facade so that it's not so monotonous. So this is the elevation showing the exact plane. And at the same time, it also provides a protection from the heat of the sun. Another elevation. And this is the extended space from the billiards when the dad wants to host billiards playing with his friends so they can party in the space, etc. Another picture of the lawn. And we tried to maintain the height of the fence wall so that we can articulate that plane, but also provided us clerestory windows so that we can activate cross ventilation. Even in the vertical section, it's the same thing, wherein we welcome the breeze of air from the ground and it goes up. What's nice about this is that we can easily operate the window at the second floor hallway. It's actually reachable. And unfortunately, I don't have a picture of that window, but that window over here somewhat is operable. This is the double height ceiling and activating that cross ventilation. And because albeit small, it's very open. It doesn't feel enclosed according to them because of the 2 planes intersecting as if they don't have any room according to them. So it feels light and it feels more expansive. This is the other side, showing the billiards hall, again, with the garden, pocket garden at the back side of it, again, expressing the trueness. The next project is what I call Touch the Grass. It's for a surfing villa. I used to surf, and I know the culture and the community. It's a 2-hour drive away from Manila. And what's unique about this place is that it's a beachfront property, but it has pine trees, ironically. And then you have wild grasses on the beach. So I thought it's good to celebrate these elements. And in surfing culture, we like always being barefooted. And I want to maintain that kind of culture in this practice. We have a boodle fight culture in the Philippines, especially when you're in the beach. We sit on the bench in the cottage, and then we eat and pig out again. But we are being barefoot as well. So the bangko or the bench is also a traditional dance in the Philippines. And if you notice, True House is all about experiment on the vertical planes. Now it's more horizontal. Although I understand that we cannot modify all the elements of the plane, so we were able to modify the living area and the bedroom area. Excuse me. So we imagine that the users will be able to touch the grass, but I understand that there will be a concern of mosquitoes, etc. We just provide the sensation of being able to touch the grass, but this is the section. There will be glass enclosure, so the idea of touching the grass is almost there. And since the property is actually a sword-like, very narrow property, all the private areas were located on one side, and the public area is located on another side to provide more breathing space in between the living areas, so that they can share. Because again, it's all about community. It's a communal activity. Hopefully they can open all the living areas so that they can share the view of the sunset, of the beach, etc. So even the bedroom and the dining area, that access was also preserved for that view, just in case they want to share the view of the ocean. So I want to end with my last proposal, although it didn't win the competition locally. It's called Bar Escape, and again, it was sited in Makati, where I used to live, and I pity the stranded commuters. This is the situation when the MRT is halted or it's not working. And then we have a commuting system called UV Express, wherein it's a van, and then people pay for it, etc. And that's what the corporate workers use to commute from places to places. And before I present it, I want to provide you a premise, because this idea is about urbanism and architecture. So this is how we are, just like any cities in the world. We use our car to go to work. We use our car to shop. We use our car to see our friends. We use our car to play and breathe. We build upwards to maximize space. We build for profit instead of people. When we say it's for people, we divide them. So when the city's point A and point B is obstructed by walls because it's all single-zoned, sorry, I can't read it. When what you see in the city are just walls, it's either just all curtain glass walls or just concrete walls. When smaller buildings are sinking because of flood, that's why we build high and tall. But what if, this is our proposition, the city's point A to point B is not obstructed? The exciting forms in the skies become reachable, just like the top part of Petronas Towers. We learn the principles of what is memorable, relatable, and humane. The humaneness is resilient. Buildings are raised to make this happen. And then we know that when we raise the building, just like the Bahay Kubo, we allow more democratic space and we allow nature to creep in. And then this permeability allows nature to creep in. The nature creeps into the entire city. We break down our walls. Our buildings open itself to the city. Our floors seamlessly connect us. And these connections become the way we live. Therefore, when we are able to do all of these things, we can finally bridge sidewalks and bridges in the skies. So the proposal is like a typical skyscraper. You will have basement parking, etc. But the moment you get to the ground floor, becomes more democratic. I can imagine the UV Express station being stationed here, and the stranded commuters of Manileños will be here. And this is also the welcoming spot for the elevated streetscape that is happening on this side, and that is the ramp going to the basement. So this is how we imagine or picture it. You can have public art, public performances, etc. in the atrium. It will also have, like I said, a space for the commuting public protected from sun and rain. And the moment you get up to the ramping street, it's either a a double loaded or single type, and this prototype can be repeated on the different levels of the building to create that variety and experience. Just notice that it's going to be served by 4 elevators just in case you get tired of walking. And then underneath the town or the streetscape will be super floors, what I call super floors, to maximize the efficiency ratio of the building, wherein it can be rented by an entire corporation, and then you can also subdivide it so that you can just establish the hallways in between. So this is another example of a double-loaded situation. And at night, this can be the street life. And then definitely, since it's going to be a repeated prototype, it can be tiring. So we need to have transition areas. And those transition areas will act as magnet or anchor areas. So we designed to have the prayer area, the playground area, and also some park areas to be transition zones and magnet areas of the building. And this is how it could look like. So it's like having a park on the skies. And then also we imagine that the uppermost zones are going to be very private. We wanted to simulate the life of a residential district in Manila, wherein children can play. Children can play in the streets, know their neighbors, and you can flirt with your neighbors as well, like Romeo and Juliet. So this is the aerial view. And just like any skyscraper, it will have the same building system, wherein all the ancillary facilities, the utilities will have the same. What makes this different is the ramping super floors that houses the townscape above. So we made a caricature depicting how it can be like in a barryscape life. Imagine you just working downstairs in the super floor, and then you go up to go to your favorite cafe. If not, you can take the elevator or take a leisurely walk to the cafe upstairs. But it was published in a Design Better book, and it made cover. So I want to end by, again, positing the question to myself about, is concept really important in making space more memorable and meaningful? And in my case, with the feedback of my client, they are so happy because it provided them a sense of experience. The living room is not the normal living room that they have. The bedroom is not the normal bedroom that they have. And in this project, I was fresh out of college, so forgive me if it's very conceptual. It was a competition entry for the Design Beyond East and West competition in Seoul, Korea, and it won silver prize. So it was a proposal for a square room, and we proposed for a dual income single child family, and then we thought that maybe the child can shape the environment that he lives in, and by using this a manufactured eye system or a building system that he can plug onto the ceiling. Although I know it's very conceptual, the message is because anybody can provide meaning and design for the space, even non-architects. So our role is to provide that new experience by providing new concepts for them. So with that, terima kasih.
Thank you, Jim Caumeron. Truly was a great way to conclude all the presentations we've had these past 2 days. Everyone has been very efficient today. Of course, there were no extra bells ringing towards the end, so that's a good sign. We did save the best for the last, so once again, thank you so much, Mr. Jim Caumeron. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to let you know, because I'm seeing so many beautiful faces in the hall right now, we'd like to come to the final part of today's agenda, the moderation and Q&A session. I'd like to call